Imagine a world without choices. Imagine you can't make your own decision. That wouldn't be a world for me. That wouldn't be a world for you. UIC.
Tell them we're gonna be stronger. Together we can make it right. Oh, well.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to another edition of UIC Liberty TV. This is Joseph Patterson, and tonight we're going to be talking about why are the elections postponed again? Why have they postponed the elections again? Why has Andrew Holness chosen to postpone these elections again? That's what we're going to talk about tonight. And I hope you are in for a treat, because we're really going to dig into this subject tonight and make sure we have a good understanding of where this Prime Minister and this government is leading us. And by government, I also include the opposition, because they're all one bag together and they're leading us somewhere. And so tonight I want us to understand where exactly these two parties are taking us, particularly under the leadership of Mr. Andrew Holness. So welcome and good night to all of you. Baba Blue, Roland, JMH, and For the Truth, and all the rest of you who are on. I don't see your name because you're not commenting yet, but welcome to all of you, and let's settle in for quite a discussion. Now, I will share with you my take on the whole thing, what my perception of the whole issue is. And I'm also going to give you the UIC's response, our press release that we put together today on the subject matter. But first, please help us to beat the media blockade by liking, sharing, and commenting on this presentation, even after I have closed the show. Please go back on and put some comments on and say what you think about the show, what you like about it, what you don't like about it, any outstanding questions you have, anything you want to see me touch on in the next episode of UIC Liberty TV. So please use up the space to communicate with us and tell us your thoughts on anything we say or fail to say, or anything you like or dislike about what we do here from time to time. Now, do me a favor and share what's going on now on your social media platforms, wherever you are, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, you name it, YouTube. Just share it all over the place for me. Share it in your WhatsApp, share it by email, share with everybody. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you can be notified as soon as we have something coming out. When you hit that little bell, that notification bell, it reminds you, it goes jing jing, tell you that we're on, so you can come in and participate. And so tonight, let's be really active and engaged. I want you to fully engage in the topic, in the discussion, and try to help me to unpack this next phase of our governance as we go through a very unique period in Jamaica's political history. Never before have we had so many postponements of elections, coupled with a number of things, the NID stuff, the digital currency stuff, the pandemic stuff, the use of the DRMA stuff, whole heap of stuff going on over all of the last 7 years of this administration. And we have seen a very weak and anemic opposition, and trying to find themselves, trying to figure out their leadership. But there's quite a bit here for us to really dig into. So please share and get all your friends and families and co-workers involved. Let them know that the UIC is boycotted for the most part by the traditional media, and even on social media we have a fight, because they really hound us, they shadow ban us and stuff. So you have to help us to push this through and get to others. So let's do for ourselves what the journalistic media will not do for us. We can be the hands and the heart of this movement and push it forward. All right, so let's get back to the main topic for the presentation tonight. We're talking about why the elections were postponed again. Why? Why were the elections postponed? Now, let's remember, as I said earlier, the media will not share any of our press releases. They will not let Jamaica know there's an alternative. So you have to do it for us. You have to help us to do that. They'll only carry the JLP and PNP on the news tonight, tomorrow night, in the morning. The Jamaican people will only hear that they have two parties, even though the UIC is a registered political party. You will not hear about us on the news. You will not hear our position on this. So you are hearing this directly, and you have to share it with your family and friends. They don't want you to have an option or to know that you have an option. So you who know must tell those who don't know. It is up to us to give ourselves an option. The UIC is you. It is your party. It is your movement. You giving yourself an option. We giving ourselves an option. In fact, we have three choices. Three very basic choices. Choice number one is that we allow the people in ignorance, and we might even join them too, right? You might join them and vote for one of these two parties, knowing that you're going to get the same results. You have gotten 79 years of it already. You know what they're up to. You know what they're good for. So if you go ahead and allow them to get elected again, then that's your fault. You're choosing to say, I'm going to allow them to get elected. Either you vote for them or you allow them by not getting involved. That's number one option. Number two, you can do like the 63% and just don't vote. I was one of the 63%. I didn't vote because I could not vote for any of these two parties. So you can say, listen, I'm done with this thing and I'm not going to vote. That's option number two. Now, if you do option number two, it is the same as option number one. You're going to end up with the same result. Option number three now is the really decisive option. In this option, you choose to join, donate, and volunteer to help elect the UIC to give yourself, your children, and our country a 50-50 chance of something better. Nobody knows how much better the UIC is going to be. No matter what nice things I tell you, you have no idea whether or not I'm going to live up to what I'm saying, whether or not the UIC is going to live up to what it has promised. You have no idea. But what you do know is that if you allow the other two parties to be elected, you're going to get pretty much what you have gotten for the last 79 years, the last 8 decades. You're going to get a steady decline in the quality of life of the Jamaican people, a steady destruction of our people, the selling out of our country, the devaluation of our dollar, inflation, crime, corruption, poverty. You know that's the result of these two parties. And no matter which one of them you might have liked in the past, that's going to be the result. And you know that if you don't do nothing, go on the sideline, stay away from it, you're going to get the same result. So our only option right now, or the best option I should say, there are 3 options. The best option is the third one, which is to join me in the UIC, donate to help us have the money to campaign, volunteer, help us to campaign, and by extension, you're helping yourself, your children, and our country, and giving us a 50-50 chance of something better than what we have seen for the last 8 decades. Now, Andrew Holness pushed through the general elections to gain a 49-seat majority. You remember that? In the midst of COVID. Yeah? In the midst of COVID, when he told us that it is so dangerous, it is very dangerous. Wear your mask, social distance. As a matter of fact, go to your bed. We don't want to say no up on the street after a certain time. Lock down your shops. Lock down your own robbing. Lock down all of your affairs. Lock down the entertainment sector. Push taxman out of business. Lock down the country. Crush the economy of the small man, because the big man them could have still open and carry on. And after all of that, him say it's too dangerous for you to go outside. But I see an opportunity to get a big majority, because the last time it wasn't too much of a majority, but this time I see an opportunity. And so what did he do? He systematically found the right moment, the right spot, in the thick of it. And he called an election, and he got a whopping majority with only 21% of the voting population participating. You follow that? So we have a government with the lowest voter turnout ever, the lowest number of votes ever for that government, 21% of the voting population. But he ended up with 49 seats out of 63. Let's do the math. 49 divided by 63 is 78%. So he had a 78% majority in the House of Parliament. He decimated the PNP and took control, firm control. You call it a supermajority. All he needed was 45 seats to have a supermajority, and he got 49. Decimated the PNP because he was using his cunning. He was using his smarts. And so he skillfully and effectively got us to a position where 21% of the voter population gave him 49 seats in the House, with a supermajority that allows him to be able to have endless SOEs. Yeah. Now, I think I see I'm getting some support coming on here. I see one of our, who is that? Yeah, I see the chairman, Winston Wright, coming to join me. So you're going to hear from him shortly. So Andrew pushed through the general elections, and he gained 49 seats in the September elections in the midst of the pandemic. But he postponed the local government elections that were due in November of that same year, claiming it was too risky. So the local government was too risky, but the general wasn't too risky. And the reason why the local government was too risky is because they already had a majority of local government seats. And so it was too risky to call elections and possibly lose that local government majority. Then he postponed the local government elections again in February 2022. At that point, the UIC was on the rise. We were sharp, we were aggressive, we were building momentum. And then he just made sure that he put some people inside. Well, I can't blame him for that because I don't know the facts. I know that we get some plants inside, and they try to tear down the movement, try to tear down the party. Right? But before that, he postponed the elections in early 2022 and put it off to February 2023 again. Yeah? And in February 2023 now, he's going to put it off again to February 2024 at the latest. Why? What is he afraid of? Is he afraid of losing his majority at the local level? Or does he have a more sinister plot in the works? Tonight, we're going to make sense of it all for you and give the PM in the process some serious advice coming from the UIC. But let me take this opportunity to welcome now our chairman. Sir Winston, are you ready for us? How are you doing, sir?
Mr. President, good evening. How are you?
Good to see you on. Thank you for joining us. How are you feeling about the postponement of the elections?
I'm mortified. I'm horrified. I'm disillusioned. I'm hurt, but I'm not surprised.
Yes.
You know why?
Why?
Because I expected that of them.
Uh-huh.
You see, the system that we currently have gives unfettered power to the Prime Minister and the Governor General by extension. And those two, whomever the Prime Minister is and whomever the Governor General is, have always worked in concert to make sure that we are kept in a very tight fist, a very tight vice, and squeezed us. Now, if an election is to be called, this becomes a litmus test, especially for the UIC. Even if we contest only one seat, it becomes a litmus test, right, of the electability of an additional party or any other party outside of the two colonial parties. And if even one UIC candidate gets elected, it becomes a blow for them. They can't have that. So they have to build their war chest up and starve the UIC of attention like they're doing, and use their monies to hopefully trick the people one more time. Because at this point in Jamaica's history and our development, it's just one more time. They have all the tools of control that they need to bring us back to that 400 years of slavery that we just struggled to come out of.
Yes.
And the people need to be wise to that. We don't have any property rights. We don't have any constitutional rights. We don't even have a constitution. Because if anybody has ever looked at the document, they would realize that the word constitution is in open and closed bracket. So I'm not surprised. I expected that of them. But the UIC is here to make sure they stay on their guard.
Well, I want to walk us through a few things. Now, the PM is not elected by the people. You know that, right?
Oh, yes.
The Prime Minister is determined by a party and its handlers and its backers, its financial backers. So the Prime Minister is really a backroom deal. The Prime Minister is not the Chief Executive Officer elected by the people of Jamaica to govern. Yes.
And don't lose your train at all. Let me give you a supposition. Now, let's think back to colonial Jamaica, where all Jamaica was a feeding tree for the quote-unquote motherland or the captive land. I prefer to think of them as the captive land. Somebody would come down here to make their fortune as a politician, to go back and find a wife and build a proper home. And he finds himself in politics and he wants to become prime minister because it furthers his ambition. He goes into that same back room you talk about and he convinces most of the MPs that, listen, I talk louder and I can do this for you. I can give you this appointment, put you on this board. I can help you make money. I can give you contracts. I can make sure that taxpayers' money gets funneled into your pocket. Make me prime minister. And those laws that existed that allowed them to do that still exist today.
And it's more, it's today it is more improved. It is more entrenched. It is more like a mafia, a solid mafia. If you think about it, what really happens is the two parties, as they set up right now, the two parties are run by a few people, the elites of those parties, who are highly connected to their funders in the PSOJ oligarchies. So they work together closely. And by the way, both parties share the same funders. So whatever is being told to them is coming from the same information, the same kind of guidance is from both. So, go ahead.
Don't lose your train of thought. What I want to do is from time to time interject a bit of reality.
Yes,
because when you speak, persons might think that you're being superfluous. You're just saying it to get attention. But one of the things you said is that they both share the same financial backers. We can go back to the public headlines and see that a very established bank in Jamaica, right, in those two elections, backed both parties equally. That is a matter of public record to the maximum amount allowable under law, which is $31.5 million. Now, isn't that what you're talking about? Them having the same backer?
Absolutely. And so the same backer is in the back room.
Here you go. And I can go further and say that that institution was caught up in a lot of controversy prior to the election and a lot of controversy sometimes after the election. At the detriment of the poor man who put his or her dollar in their institution. Right? Now, you also mentioned, what was it you said? They have the same what? The same goal or something like that, you said?
Well, they have the same backers, and whatever directions are being given by the backer is the same direction to both of them. So what our oligarchies have done, they're very smart. So what they've done is given us two flavor of the same ice cream, right? It's still ice cream. It will still do the same damage, right? But you can have a orange flavor and a green flavor. The same poison, the same impact, but the color is different. And so now, so what you have is you have, if you look at, for example, Mark Golden and Andrew, they're different personalities, very different personalities. You know, one is more mild-mannered in his approach and in his speech. One is a little bit more aggressive and you know, not very attractive, but they're still working for the same master. The objective is the same. The path may be different. One path might sound more, let me use words like socialistic, if you will, and another path might sound another way, but the end result is the same. It is to ensure that the mass of Jamaican people are tricked and a few of the Jamaican population are enriched at their expense. Your thoughts?
Exactly. But you mentioned the PSOJ oligarchs and the direction that these parties are given. And I'll tell you a story. On behalf of the UIC, a few days ago, I went to take care of some business. And when I say went, I don't mean that I went into an institution. I undertaken an activity on behalf of the UIC, and in turn communicated with one of those people. I know that the head of that organization is pro one of the colonial parties.
Mm-hmm.
And when I reached out to that person, my email bounced indicating from their webmaster, their postmaster as they call it, my email bounced to say that your email has been blocked. In addition to emailing the organization, my email also went to 4 individuals in that organization with the exact same result. And I should point out that this is a media company, by the way.
Right. Okay. So
the owner of this company was one that came out in support of the PNP, and when he was bashed for it because he owns a media conglomerate and can shape the public opinion, he said, "No, I apologize."
Right.
The apology didn't go far enough, I guess.
Well, I want to bring in another element to our discussion. So earlier I pointed out that the Prime Minister is not determined by the Jamaican people. He's not elected by the Jamaican people. In an indirect way, he may be, given that when the Jamaican people are going to the polls, they know that he or she is the leader of the party, and if they vote for the candidate of that party, then
for the first time since I've known you, I'm going to disagree.
Yeah, go ahead.
When we go to the polls, there is no way, shape, or form we can elect a prime minister, whether indirectly or whatever. When we elect an MP, we elect someone to represent our constituency. Right? Then they go to Kingston or wherever they go, whichever back room they go to, and they choose a guy that is more popular according to the framing of the...
But hold on, let me disagree with you there. Because remember what happened. When we go to the polls, we normally know who the leader of the parties are. So Andrew Holness campaigned as the leader of the JLP, and for example, many times they tell us about the leader. They say a young people time now. So Andrew was elected based on the fact that he's young and that he is coming from the, what do you call it now? He's coming from the point where he was the first. He's going to be the first prime minister born after 1962, and he's young, and so on. We elected the PNP at one point with Portia as woman time now. We elected the PNP at one time with PJ Patterson, black man time now. You know, we elected the JLP with Bruce Golding and so on. So there's an element of connection, but it's not a direct connection. The Jamaican people doesn't get to directly elect their president, or the executive leadership of their government. But the party foist upon them, the party through the back room, how they determine who is going to be the leader of the party. For example, Bruce Golden picked Andrew Holness when he was leaving office after he was disgraced. He picked him, and so that influenced the whole thing. But barring that, I wanted to move to the next point. So the first point is we don't directly elect our prime minister or head of government. But also, this person who is unelected gets to decide when elections are going to be called within a 4-year window for local government and within a 5-year window for general elections. The PM gets to call elections whenever he wishes or whenever he finds it favorable to his party. Isn't that so?
Very much so. And right now, as a matter of fact, this is not the first time he did it. When he got that landslide, he was on the way to unfavorability. Yeah. And he literally tricked the rest of us. He said, we're not going to call election pandemic. Then, pandemic, let's have an election.
Yes.
Because he realized that lots of persons are going to stay away. So, and we ended up with what we have now, less than a minority government.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, 63% of the population didn't vote.
Yeah.
And right now, he's waiting to become popular again.
Yeah. Well, only 21% of the Jamaican voting population voted for the GLP. 21% voted for them. 16% voted. The PNP was even worse. Only 16% of the voting population thought that the PNP was worthy of them braving the dangerous pandemic. Only 16% was, and by the way, both parties only got their base. So the JLP got its absolute base coming out for it, and the PNP lost some of its base that did not come out. So the rest of Jamaica, those that are not partisan by nature, were not tribal by nature, most of those persons did not go out to vote, right? So that's very, very telling on them. So we see here Prime Minister not elected by the people, but having the power to select when an election is called within the 5-year window for general and within the 4-year window for local. Now, the colonial constitution does not have fixed election dates. And because it doesn't have fixed election dates, it allows the prime minister to manipulate the electorate. And that's what we're seeing normally. And it's not just today. So we're not just blaming Andrew for this. He's just using what the colonial constitution allows him to do. He is twisting it and using it to his benefit in the same way, and even worse, than others who have also used it and twisted it to their benefit.
And that is the problem I have with this whole thing.
Yeah.
When I hear people say that, oh, the PNP was this or the JLP was this, in very strong affirmation of what they believe is a good thing, I cringe. Because if, God forbid, I live in a community or my house, my family lives with me for 78 years, and nothing in their lives has changed for the better over those 78 years, right? Then something wrong with me being head of the household. Something is very wrong with it. And we live in a country where two parties have controlled our lives, and I do mean control, because the system is set up, again, because of its colonial architecture, to allow them to control every facet of our life, the economy, our chances of betterment, healthcare, education, everything. And people might not see it because they have grown up, they're desensitized to it because they have grown up with it. So they may not see it. But when you look at it, and I came into this knowledge by accident, because I was thrust in a role where I get to see the separation between the operator and the regulator. So I can now see that the government running a hospital is the poorest thing that will ever happen. Where healthcare will always be poor. The government having a Ministry of Education that runs education or provide educational services instead of creating an educational framework for others to operate in will always be a poor education system.
But
And
I
we
don't
can
want to. I don't want to stray too far though from them. What you're saying is perfect, makes perfect sense. But I want us to zero in a little bit. I'm trying to guide us into a path here where I showed that the Prime Minister was not elected by us directly. B, I showed that the Prime Minister and the party is controlled by some people behind the scenes, working towards their own objective. And I've shown that we don't have election dates. So the Prime Minister gets to manipulate us and try to find the best window to get elected versus having a fixed date whereby him can't manipulate nothing. He's just doing his work. The date going to come, and on that date we're going to have election, good or bad, whether the economy is good or bad, whether conditions are good or bad, whether you can't manipulate, you just have a fixed date. Now I want us to see a third point, or fourth. The design of the system, the partisan design of the system, that allows the Prime Minister to appoint senators and then further appoint them to ministerial position, up to 4 of them out of the 13 he appoints. And the system that allows the Prime Minister to appoint MPs as ministers, which is what you were getting into a while ago, the conflicting roles. So you have the executive function and it's mixed in with the legislative function. But what it does more than anything else, it gives the Prime Minister a tremendous amount of power because every MP is hoping that he's going to make them a minister. And every senator that he appoints is also hoping. And he's able to appoint and dismiss ministers at will. But worse than that, every MP and senator is a part of his party, or the part of the winning party. They know that if they don't behave properly, the party won't support them and back them in the next election. And the moneyed interest, which controls the party, won't give them any money, either through the party or directly. And so they have to stay in line. And so even if the Prime Minister is taking us down the wrong path, even if the financial backers are backing him to take us down the wrong path, they cannot say anything significantly because they risk losing their place in the party and not being re-elected. So the very design of the system that we have makes this one man so powerful that he can destroy the nation, and it emasculates the remaining 49 or 48 MPs that are from his own party, let alone the system already told us that the opposition is there to oppose. So we can't always take them too seriously because we know that they're going to oppose everything. So the system is rigged to lead us down a path where one man, with the backing of unelected funders can destroy the country. What do you say to that?
A lot. But first, guys, in the comment section, have you liked this as yet? Have you subscribed? Have you shared this with at least 5 friends? Do that for me now, please. Need your support on this. Now, these big money backers, and throughout history and throughout politics, they exist. But the countries that thrive are the ones that are able to put them in their proper place. We have not been able to do that. We all corrupt politicians, and I see people in the chat splitting hairs as to which party is wicked and which politician is wickeder. Listen, they all are. One prime minister sold out the entire North Coast for cents on the dollar. And right now, there's a big development taking place there that has displaced the community. But most importantly, all those jobs are PAYE minimum wage jobs that they're creating, that they're boasting about, while the bulk of the riches end up in capital flight, going somewhere else, which puts stress on our dollar because it is a massive amount that is being bought up, FX being bought up to send that money away to the various owners of these things. In other countries, you have to have a local partner, so part of the capital stays in the country.
Sir
So-
Winston, may I try to keep you on track, because I know we have so many things we can talk about, but tonight I want to zero in on this because sometimes our listeners can follow a number of different directions, and I know your brain full of all of these things, and we talk about them all the time. But I want us to zero in on what is happening here. So I just pointed out to us that the very design of our system incentivizes senators and MPs of the governing party to be quiet and to go along with and to not challenge. They can't. They're not here. Go ahead. Sorry, yeah.
Let's look at the current controversy with constituency money spending. That is the prima facie case for corruption in the use of public treasury. And of course, when you look at how they dole out our tax dollars with no value for money and how it comes back to them, I mean, it's not documented because nobody has sat down to do the proper reporting. It tells us that we have to change the way we elect these officials and how they're appointed. Because if the Prime Minister can appoint them and dismiss them, as you rightfully said, who's going to want to upset the quote-unquote gravy train?
No, there's no way. If your money for the next campaign is dependent upon you towing the party line, you cannot focus on working for the people of Jamaica or for your constituents. You are working for those who fund your party and those who control your party and those who can decide whether or not you will get to be nominated to run again the next year. I can show you something. Anybody who don't join the GLP or PNP and run, take the guy in my constituency, Gary Slowly. Gary Slowly ran as an independent candidate the same year that I ran in 2016. I spent in that year about $700,000 on my campaign, 700,000 Jamaican dollars, approximately, if I remember correctly. Gary Slowly spent millions of dollars as an independent candidate. A wealthy person here in the constituency. He's doing very well in business, and he ran a massive campaign. He hired a lot of people. I couldn't hire nobody. A few volunteers we have, a few volunteers. And he did a massive campaign right across the constituency. And he was able to amass about 500 to 700 votes out of all of that effort. The moment he joined the JLP and ran in the next election, he got their entire base. Their entire base came out 6,000 votes. So he only got 6,000 votes, 6,000, 7,000 votes because he's a JLP, not because he is who he is, running as a person, offering himself, offering his ideas, offering his ability to lead or whatever it is. No, he wasn't elected on that. He was elected because of the party in which he is and the amount of money which comes with that backs him in the process. So the point I'm trying to make here is this, that the very system of our government, the very design of it, brings out the worst in our politicians, brings out the worst in our politics, brings out the worst in our people, and helps to destroy our country. Now, moving on, the PM told us, the PM told us, let me get you back on here. The PM told us that local government elections in November 2020 was too risky because of the pandemic. But my question is, why wasn't it too risky in September of 2020, in the height of the pandemic? Why was it not risky in 2020 when the law allowed him to delay that election by 9 months, but he couldn't afford to delay it even in the height of the pandemic? But come November, it was very easy for him to decide that he should postpone the local government elections. There's the manipulation. He also canceled the local elections when it was due February of 2022. Again, with no meaningful excuse. In fact, the Minister of Local Government and Rural Development, Mr. Desmond McKenzie, who piloted the bill, said that given the ongoing pandemic and the fourth wave, the holding of an election at this time, that was February 2022 or thereabouts, would put the country at greater public risk. So again, they delayed as a result of the pandemic. Now,
What's the excuse this time? Tell me.
Hold on, no, for the 2023 now, so that was 2022. Remember, you might recall, Winston, in 2022, the UIC was on fire. We were blazing away in 2022. And they said, let's stop this from getting anywhere. And so they did two things. Number one, they delayed the elections. And number two, they had some plans in the UIC that went on a rampage to try to destroy the organization from within. I hear that some money run and all kind of things happen. And we were the beneficiary, not the beneficiary, the what you call it, the opposite of beneficiary. We paid the price. We suffered tremendously as they tried to destroy the organization from within. And we're still standing. We're still here today. We have gone through all of that and we're still standing today. But the truth is, we were on a great upward momentum at the time. They tried to disrupt our donors. They tried to disrupt our candidates. They tried to disrupt our members. They tried to even destroy the leadership of the organization. And when I say they, I'm speaking generally, not to one party or the other. It's general. We don't know who did what specifically. We just feel the impact of it when they attacked us from inside. So in 2022, when we were going to be a major factor, they just turned it off. And then we had lots of problems inside the UIC. Now come 2023, we're going to look at what's happening in 2023. So now for 2023, this time it is a fragile economy, a fragile economic recovery, and plans for the Portmore municipality becoming a parish, which, by the way, makes absolutely no sense. What are your thoughts on that?
They usually pick a political football and kick it as far as they can. And Portmore becoming a parish is one of those footballs.
A distraction. It's a distraction.
Yeah.
It's purely a distraction. You think
Infrastructure.
the people of Portmore right now are suffering for lack of being a parish?
No, they have road problems, they have water problems,
Yeah.
and most importantly, they have land problems.
Making Portmore a parish will not stop the cost of toll road, you driving on toll road to get out of and into your community. Making Portmore a parish will not stop the citizen from the high cost of traveling to and fro, trying to get out of their community and in, but from the toll road. It will not fix the water problem they have there. It will not fix the mosquito problems they have there. It will not fix the bad roads that they have there. It will simply add another layer of cost to pay more politicians to get nothing done.
And that's what they do best. They create work for themselves and their friends.
Absolutely.
Now, there's a lot of work. The desire to make Portmore a parish needs a lot of work. And as you said, it's not necessary. What is necessary is work to develop the people in general, not one specific group, not one political football, not one anything. A focus plan. And this election, as you said, they are showing that they recognize that they have done wrong and they're hiding from the electorate.
Well, hold on. No, not going to say it. Not going to say it. We know that they're delaying the election, and we know that it may appear as if they're afraid of something. But could it be, Mr. Wright, that there is something more sinister going on here? Could it be? And I'm going to take us there tonight. Could it be that, you see, I hear people call these politicians all kind of bad names. They call them idiots. they call them incompetent, they call them all kind of names, fools. Listen, they are, in my opinion, those guys who are running our country, those guys who have run these two parties, those guys who have controlled these two parties are the smartest set of Jamaicans we have here. Now, smart doesn't mean wise, doesn't mean good, doesn't mean holy. A man can be very smart and very wicked. For example, if you go back and look at the history of Hitler in Germany, remember Hitler, let me tell you about Hitler. Hitler was a dunce by academic standards. Okay? He failed. By academic standards, he failed. He was not a person of any exemplary character in society. He did not achieve anything great outside of what he eventually did as Führer. Yet still, that dunce, as they called him, and they joked about him and they made fun of him, that dunce was able to take the German people on a path in a direction that nobody could have predicted a whimsical dunce like Hitler could have done. And yet, that's where he took them, the path of perdition, the path of destruction. And the German people and the Jewish people and the world paid a dear price for not taking this man seriously at the very beginning. Now, I say this to say that if you look at how, first of all, these two parties, how they have been able to systematically get us to where we are, how they were able to systematically and cunningly get us to trust them. Notice we had a good man, Marcus Garvey, with a great party, the PPP, with a brilliant set of manifesto, and a heart committed to the people, especially to our race. And that man showed us in every sign and way that the best path we could take is the path of Marcus Garvey and where he wanted to take us. Yet still, two semi-white men working with two groups of elites within the country. And behind them, the plantocracy. Remember, the plantocracy is the precursor of the PSOJ. Okay? So the plantocracy was all of those wealthy plantation owners who remained here in Jamaica, most of whom were white or somewhat white or whitewashed. And they worked assiduously and effectively to convince the people, using even the courts and the media. They used the Gleaner Company back then to disparage Marcus Garvey, and they used their moneyed interest, the money, through two parties to buy the votes of the Jamaican people, and they even lock up Marcus Garvey to keep him out of the municipal council, and subsequently won over the Jamaican people to trust them as the two parties that would take us from slavery to freedom, from poverty to prosperity. Yeah? And what did they do with that power that we gave them from 1944 to 1962? What did they do with it? Here's what they did with it. They systematically made us promises that they never kept. And when we finally vote them out, they make sure we only have the option that they have created for us. Remember that they is the PSOJ or the plantocracy behind the scenes. The people who are not necessarily running for office, they're behind the scenes. They are the Mark Golden before they become an MP, before they become opposition leader, before they become, hopefully, he's thinking to become prime minister. So they work behind the scenes, and they got us to think we only have two options, having gotten rid of the others. And then now they get us to think, okay, you're PNP, you're Labour, right, and you fight each other. And they've gotten us to do this for 79 years, Winston. For 79 years, they've been able to get us into this, and we have just bought it hook, line, and sinker, thinking that the best way to run our country is using a partisan model. And the only parties that can run it are these two. And all other parties, we're going to starve them of money, starve them of media, and lock the people into a path that we can then own them and control them while making them think that they're free when they're still slaves, wage slaves, low-wage slaves on top of it. And so that's the strategy. So here we are now in 2023, being told that we're going to have elections in 2024 or thereabouts. And the reason for it is because the economic recovery is fragile and we're yet to finish concluding the issue of Portmore becoming a parish. And for that, we're going to postpone elections. And guess what? You do not see any riots in the streets, do you?
Now, that level of compliance is frightening. And here's why. It shows that the people after 79 years still don't know that we have no rights, that we're still akin to what our foreparents or our forebearers were, just in a different way.
Them tricked bad.
Yes.
We're so tricked that if I were to call now and say we're going to demonstrate in the street and lock this government down and demand that we have elections now, you'll see only a few people out there with me. And when the police come to lock me up like they did the last time, they will have an easy path and they will just they would just walk up to me and grab me like they did the last time, and they would just rescind my bail, because I'm out on bail now, from the last time. I'm still out on bail. They'll just rescind my bail and lock me up again, and this time they'll throw away the key because they know that we're weak. They know that our people won't do anything much. But I wanted to continue. Here's where we are now. Andrew really does not like to play by the rules. Did you notice that? Even the colonial masters rules, the colonial masters rules that give him so much power already, he still cannot be satisfied with the inordinate amount of power already embedded in a bad constitution, a very bad constitution. It's not even worthy of being called a constitution. But even with that, there are still a few slight elements of checks and balances in that document. And he's not content to live even with those minimal checks. For example, I already told you he has control over the senators, right? Remember I told you that?
Yes, he does.
By virtue
very tight control.
Go ahead, yeah, go ahead.
Very tight control that they rubber stamp anything he does.
Yes.
There is absolutely no one to say to him, no, Prime Minister, this isn't in the best interest of the people, because they're all waiting for that cushy appointment that fills their pockets.
Absolutely. And so with all of that in place, even though he knows he has a tremendous control of the senators, one of the first things he did when he ascended to the high office was to demand of his senators. He's appointing 13. The Constitution allows him to appoint 13 senators of the 21. And it allows the opposition leader to appoint the other 8. He has 13, opposition leader has 8. So he has a clear majority. He would still need one of the opposition to come over for him to have a 2/3 majority on votes that requires that. But he has an outright majority. And what he did, because he doesn't like to play by the rules, he got some of his senators to sign undated resignation letters so that if they should dare to disagree with him, he could just fill in the date and they have resigned. and it gives him the power to therefore remove senators at will, easily, by having them sign illegally an undated resignation letter to circumvent the constitutional safeguards, the minimal constitutional safeguards that were in place. He sought to circumvent that with these letters. Am I correct?
Very much so. Now, imagine a senator under these circumstances breaking ranks with the party line. That undated letter gets submitted, and next thing you know, that person is out. And somebody else who's willing to toe the party line gets shoved into his position. I mean, and even the Constitution contemplated that the courts had to deal with it.
Oh yes,
which tells you how weak and minimal those checks and balances are.
And on top of that, I don't even remember this. Do you recall when he had the opportunity to appoint a Chief Justice? Again, he sought to circumvent the system by making the Chief Justice of the land a temp. You know, like when you go to a temp agency and you have a company. You have a company and you're trying to hire somebody to fill a position in the company, but you need to just kind of hold straight until, the whole process work out. So you go to a temp. Go ahead, Winston.
Joseph, if that matter didn't pan out the way it did.
Yes. Just imagine.
Because that was an attempt to take over, to annex the courts of the land.
Yes.
I heard a politician say once that the parliament is the highest judicial body in the land. And I had to look up, down, and around to figure out where I'm at. Because I must have gone to some parallel universe. Because I know the court is.
Yes.
And if this madman of a leader that we had was able to annex the courts, especially through the office of the Chief Justice, all these illegal, if you notice, every major piece of the legislation gets struck down. And I won't tell him my very affable name for his legal team. And I'll leave that for when we are talking.
No, but remember, they're trying a thing, and if they can get away with it, they will get away. Look at NIDS, for example. I'm going to come to NIDS in a bit. I'm going to show you how skillful they are. And I don't call them madman. I know we say that because they make us angry, but these guys, they are cunning. These guys are cunning, and they're seriously committed to the destruction of so-called democracy. But let me not jump too far yet. So watch what happened. So here it is with the Chief Justice. He sought to make the Chief Justice of the land a temp, so that if the Chief Justice doesn't do what he wants him to do, he could fire him instantaneously. If he made him just Chief Justice normally, he would lose that immediate termination control. And so he wanted to make the Chief Justice a temp in order for him to be able to manipulate the office of the Chief Justice. Then comes NIDS. The first NIDS bill he brought, it was designed to violate almost every one of our human rights. Almost every human rights on the book he was prepared to violate with the NIDS bill. That's the National Identification System. And the courts had to stop him. But they have not stopped him fully. Because what he has done is say, okay, we can't force people to do it directly. According to the courts, we can't do it directly. So what we're going to do is do it indirectly. So we're going to say, we're not going to force you to take the NIDS. But what we're going to do is to make it difficult for you to exist without taking the NIDS. And so that is the strategy that the Prime Minister and his party has taken to violate the rights of the Jamaican people. So he violated the senators. He violated the Chief Justice. And he came even more directly at the people with the NIDS bill to violate we the people directly. The court said no, and now he's going to do it indirectly. So you won't be able to open a bank account if you don't have the NIDS. You will have very great difficulties getting any government services if you don't have the NIDS. It will elicit his employers, the same ones who we use to try to force you to take the injection without him outrightly passing a law mandating it. The same way he tried to use your employers to do it, he will use your employers to enforce the NIDS on you. So you can't get a job, or you can't move up, or you can't get any decent job unless you have the NIDS. So they're going to use all the different avenues to make it mandatory without saying in law clearly that it is mandatory. I want you to see how cunning and deceptive and destructive this Prime Minister, not just the and let me, I'm saying Prime Minister, but don't get me wrong. I know him we're talking about alone. It's an entire team. It's a mafia. It's a gang. Go ahead, Sir Winston.
It's a gang of 63 who
Yes.
know the level of corruption and the level of corruption and illegality or alleged illegality that takes place under these guises.
Oh, but it might not be illegal. That's the worst part about it, because they're making the laws.
That again.
So they make laws. They make laws to make bad things legal. For example, remember, slavery was legal.
True.
So we can't just say something is legal or illegal. It's a matter of, is it just or unjust? And that's why I love Marcus Garvey, because Marcus Garvey said justice is greater than the law. And what that means is, when a piece of law come in front of you, you must not just say whether a person is a law-abiding citizen, because sometimes the citizen must break the law. If the law is unjust, when Hitler made laws that were unjust against the Jews, Germans broke the law because it was unjust to defend and protect the Jews. When the colonial masters made laws that were unjust to suppress and oppress the Africans that they made into slaves, there were other white men and women who broke those laws, helped them to escape to the north because those laws were unjust. And so today, when there are unjust laws, we must be prepared to break those laws. And that's why on September 22nd, 2021, I broke the DRMA law, and 500 of us broke the DRMA law, including yourself, Mr. Wright. We broke the law because it is unjust. And the courts will eventually rule, when we finish with them, that the DRMA was unconstitutional and was a violation of our rights. Not that the Constitution cares so much about our rights, but the Constitution prescribed the methodology that is to be followed if there is a pandemic, and how you should go about creating a state of emergency and dealing with that. And this Prime Minister and this government, with the cooperation of the opposition, instituted laws that were in contravention of this weak, anemic colonial constitution, which is not designed fully to protect our rights.
You see, the events of the 2+ years of quote-unquote pandemic conditions should have taught every Jamaican, regardless of which side of the divide that you sat on, that both parties are the same. It was a textbook display of unison. It's the first time they outed each other to show that they are one of a kind. And the people should remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Remember the silence on one side,
Yes.
and the veracity, and the eagerness on the other side.
And the UIC was the only true opposition.
The only voice of reason throughout all that darkness that the people face.
Yeah. And I see people here saying that the UIC must come together with the PNP. Come together for what? Can two walk together that disagree? Can you mix good food and poison together and it not become poison? If you have a glass of orange juice, a lovely nice glass of orange juice. My wife she makes beautiful stuff. Like recently she made me some star fruit juice. You know the star fruit, with the little pegs? We have a big tree in the back and it's just full. And she makes that and turns it into a lovely juice with some ginger in it and stuff. Lovely. As lovely as that juice is, if somebody come and drop a little bit of poison in it, no matter how lovely the juice look, no matter how nice it might taste, are still poison. So there is no mixing of the UIC and the PNP. There is no coming together of the UIC with the PNP. There is no joint initiative between the UIC and the PNP. The PNP is the reflection or the opposite side of the coin of the JLP. The two of them are one. They're working for the same master, for the same objective, even if at various times they may sound different or look different. So the UIC has no plans, no intentions, and never will be a partner with either of them. Never. Okay, that said, I want to move on now to one more of the violation of our rights by this government and this Prime Minister. Notice how they have abused the SOE rules in the Constitution. In order for you to have a state of emergency in the normal Constitution, you need to go to Parliament and you need to get the votes in the lower house, 2/3, and you need to get the 2/3 vote in the upper house, the Senate. In order for any party that is elected to get a 2/3 vote in the Senate, at least one member of the opposite party have to agree with the plan for it to go through. Am I right, Sir Winston? I know you're an expert on these matters.
Absolutely correct.
So the Prime Minister has decided that since him can no longer toy with and play with and manipulate the opposition, the weak opposition, to support him in his draconian approach to crime fighting that is not sustainable, that is destroying the purpose of SOEs, and that is actually spreading crime across the country rather than containing it and stopping it. When he could no longer continue to play this game with the opposition because they decided to grow a slight backbone because the election is coming near and they're trying to differentiate themselves. When he could no longer manipulate them fully, he moved to simply ignoring that provision and using back-to-back states of emergencies for short duration that does not require the opposition, but was never the intention of the provision in the first place. Do I have that correct, Mr. Wright?
Yes, you do. And again, you pointed it out earlier when you said that he does not like playing by the rules. And we see that when he was in a junior position, and it continues to escalate to this very day.
Yes. Which brings us now to the election postponements. So here is the latest set of rules which he will break. So he has now almost exhausted, nobody has ever seen this before, 3 postponements of an election by a prime minister. 3 postponements. And in each case, the reasons given are all suspect. In the first instance, he said it's because of the severity of COVID, and at the same time still held a general election because it was opportune to him, while not having a local because he already had a majority in the locals. You see what I'm saying here? So he had a local majority already, so he has kept his majority at the local level not illegally, unjustly, because it's legal, because the weak constitution allows this. It doesn't have fixed election dates. So he unjustly, manipulatively used those powers to delay elections in 2020, and then again in 2022 he cited the flimsy continuation of the COVID crisis, given that he already had general elections. And then now when he had nothing meaningful to grasp at, he tells us. What he tells us now? That the economy is fragile after boasting about growth, telling us lies, statistical lies. You know, there are three kinds of lies. You know them?
Lies, lies, and statistics.
No man, so the whole thing. Lies, damn lies, and statistics. Those are the three kinds of lies. And they've been using the third one, where they know that most Jamaicans are good with math, thanks to their education
system,
right?
The one they purvey over.
Yeah, they know someone are good with math. And so they keep telling people about 5% growth. But you don't have growth. If Winston, if I come to, let me make it simple for all those who are listening. If I were to cut your salary, if I were, let's say business slow down, okay, because of some mistake I made. So I am running a company and I make some blunders, right? And I cause our customers less customers and less production and whatever. So I cause some problems. And so because the business slowed down because of my wrong decisions and bad management, I cut your salary by 10%. And then after we settle down and we call the customers and apologize and we start to get things work out a little bit, and now the company kind of bounced back to where it was before I cut your salary, right? It bounced back now. Is that growth or is that recovering to the anemic level you were before?
That's recovery.
Yes, it's recovery. So what we're going through in Jamaica is a recovery back to the anemic, poor economy that we knew prior to 2020. Yeah? And so now we're back there. Okay, not growth. But it told us about growth and growth and growth, and then use now the fragility of the economy to put off the election. So that means whenever we have a fragile economy in the future, and we have had a fragile economy now for some 50 years, thanks to them.
More.
So we have more, but at least the last 50, we have seen like 1% growth per year, which is when the whole world is growing at 5, 6, 7%, 3, 4%, we have still been growing at 1% or even declining. And they're saying because of economic fragility, we won't have an election. So that means in the future, whenever we have an economic challenge or a fragile environment, we must postpone elections.
That's the presidents that was said, yeah. So they'll keep coming up with that excuse now. And the other party that sits with them will say, oh, but you did it too.
Absolutely.
And that is always their argument.
So you see where we're heading as a country. We are heading for deep doo-doo under these guys. So we dare not trust Andrew Holness and the JLP or the PNP with any constitutional reforms.
How long ago did they say they'll give us fixed election dates?
Well, we're going to come to that. That coming down, but I want watch it now. After what I have just described to you, Winston, and all of you who are watching, I want to ask everybody a simple question. Let me put this on the screen here. I want to put this on the screen, and I want to ask everybody this question. After what I have just explained to you, showing you how morally bankrupt our political leaders are and how they're prepared to do things to circumvent checks and balances, how they're prepared to undermine our fragile democracy, if you will. Do you trust them now to give you a real republic? Do you trust them now to reform our constitution? Do you trust them now to give you a new set of governance by which to live? Having seen what they have done for the last 8 decades or 79 years and what they have done in recent years and what this particular prime minister has done with the full support of his party and the full support of the PSOJ, oligarchy that backs them. Will you trust them? If you trust them, say yes. And if you don't trust them, let me rephrase that. Sorry, hold on. Don't write it. Don't write. I want to change that. I want to put it more positive. Let me put it more positive. Who would you trust with reforming the economy? You have three choices: UIC, JLP, or PNP. After what I've just described to you, which of them would you trust to change your constitution, to give you a republic, a true republic? Will you trust the JLP after what you have seen? If you trust the JLP, put JLP. Would you trust the PNP after how they have led in all of this, or failed to lead in all of this? Would you trust them? Or would you trust the UIC with giving you a true republic and a real constitution? Type UIC if you think the UIC is the way to go, or type JLP or type PNP. Let me see if what we have just explained to you gives you confidence to trust either of these two parties with reforming your constitution. What do you say, Winston?
While persons are thinking about their answers, right, and planning their answers, and I see an interesting one, but I looked at the UIC manifesto, right, and it's progressive and stable. And our manifesto tells us and the Jamaican people exactly what we will do and when we will do it in terms of a constitutional change. Now, for 78 years, either of the two could have done exactly what the UIC said. 78 years.
79 now.
79.
Going 80.
Yeah, I did the calculation this morning, 80.
Yeah.
So, yeah, 80.
Yeah.
So, if they would have done it, could have done it, wanted to do it, most importantly, wanted to do it, it would have been done. And the fact that it's not done, and now they're saying, oh, let me do it, because the UIC has spoken strongly about it, the UIC has laid a progressive agenda out to do it, means that they won't do it. They're going to find some backdoor way to annex it.
Yes.
And the man at the helm right now, I don't trust him, because he has proven to be sneaky and cunning at all steps. But I give them one better than that. If they want to see the puppy show that this can become, look at our neighbor to the general south that has recently become a republic, and see how that is panning out.
A fake republic. Let's be clear.
A very fake one.
They have not become a republic. What they have done, they have simply replaced the word governor general with president. They've replaced the word. So they've simply taken their constitution and said, listen, from now on, we're going to call the governor general president. And so we're now a republic. Yay, we're a republic now. That's not a republic. The UIC will make it very clear to the Jamaican people that is not a republic. That is simply putting lipstick on a pig. That is simply playing dress up. It is a fake republic. Guyana is a fake republic. Trinidad is a fake republic. Barbados is a fake republic. America is a fake republic. The only true republic in the world is a country that fully protects your individual sovereignty. And if that is not what it's about, then it's not a republic. No matter what they call it.
Republic.
Even China called themselves a republic.
Yes.
So
it's just a word to be bandied about for them.
Yes. So hear me. This is my point. We dare not trust Andrew and the JLP or Mark and the PNP with any constitutional reforms. Or they will not only give us a fake republic, but they'll give us something worse than the colonial tragedy we're now living under. If we allow them to mess with this document and give us something new, it is going to be something worse than what we have now. They will have nice words, I'm sure. They will put nice varnish on the front. But underneath will be a very, very evil and devilish system that will cost us more than what this current one has cost us. So I want to move on now, Sir Winston, to my next point. So we might think that Andrew is running scared. We might think he's afraid to call the election because he might lose the election.
Of course.
We might think so. And you know, that's a possibility. But I want to give us another thought. I believe he's playing a game, a dangerous game with our fake democracy. He's trying to outsmart us and to outsmart the system into creating, listen to me carefully, Andrew Holness is not running scared. Andrew Holness is playing a game, a very, 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 very dangerous game with our fake democracy. Because we don't have a true democracy. And sometimes we have to thank God for that too, because that's another story. But this fake democracy that we have has a few checks and balances, very few, still. But he's playing a dangerous game with this fake democracy. And he's trying to systematically and cunningly outsmart us at every turn. And he has been winning so far. Look what he has done. I mean, mind you, let me correct that. We have stopped him. The UIC stopped him in 2021 from immediately injecting the targeted number of, initially they said 65, then it moved to 70, then it moved to 80, right? So their plan was to inject some 80 to 90 to 100% of us. But because of our action, it stopped. But then they've been systematically still working on it behind the scenes, and there's more to come. It's not over yet. I know people are going back to work and think it's up. No, they still have plans for us, nefarious plans. So watch me now. He's trying to outsmart us, and he's trying to outsmart the system, and he's gaining grounds. He has gained grounds with the NIDS bill. He has gained tremendous grounds with the digital currency, which we have to watch carefully. The central bank digital currency, CBDC, and he's working on us. His goal, in my opinion, is to create a one-party state and a subtle form of dictatorship in Jamaica. That's his goal. His goal is to create a one-party state and a subtle form of dictatorship. And guess who is helping him to do that? I soon tell you. Go ahead. You have something to say, Mr. Wright.
You see, it won't be a subtle form of dictatorship.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen the militarization of our state,
Yes.
which you know I'm very, very much against that. We have seen him use the state powers in very frightening ways. I myself have been victim of these state powers.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, I've triumphed because of the knowledge I have. And when I interact with these state actors on the street, I make sure that despite my bearded appearance, my knowledge shows. And this prime minister isn't stopping short of saying, you know, let us throw everybody that runs afoul of the law in prison for life because he feels he has the power to. And he makes this grand pronouncement and he smiles when he does it, because he knows he has a small subset that cheers for him when he says these very, very, very telling things, because it shows his mindset and the kind of leader he wants to be, the kind of leader he's working up to be. And as the president has said, a dictator. And people have given him this title, and he has lived up to it every step of the way. We need to take heart that the UIC is here to stand in the way, to stand in the breach. But we also need to take caution and realize who we're dealing with.
Yeah, we have
People
to.
need to realize. The people need to realize and stand strong.
If we allow either of these two parties to win the next election, we're literally handing over our rights and may never regain it again. That's where we are now. If we switch between the two of them, Mark Golden and the PNP is going to pick up right where Andrew left off, because Andrew is not doing this off his own accord. Okay? Now, his wife said in jest the other day that they'll need 30 years in office. Did you remember that?
Oh, yes.
She
Very
said it
frightening
in
thought.
jest. Yeah, but it wasn't a joke. They're very serious about getting 30 years at all costs. They said the PNP got 18 and a half years. Now, the PNP deserve never to be re-elected again in the history of Jamaica. There's no way a party can get 18 and a half years in office and not make such a mark that they would be the most beloved party right now. Now, you might recall Lee Kuan Yew, his party... Sorry?
Same thought I was just having.
Yeah, Lee Kuan Yew's party has never lost an election. In 1965, they won a very difficult election, hard-fought election in 1965. Young Lee Kuan Yew, a lawyer, very committed patriot, a visionary, somebody who had a real plan to improve the lives of the impoverished Singaporean people in 1965, who had fought hard prior to that to rid the country of the communist elements, and he sought to build an alliance with his neighbors to make Singapore a rich and wealthy country. And he won that election in 1965. And after the first 5 years in office, the people could see clearly that Lee Kuan Yew was not about Lee Kuan Yew. He was not about himself. He was not trying to enrich him. In fact, he lived in the same house from the time he won the first election. The same house he had before he won the election is the same house he was living in when he retired from politics, and the same house he was living in when he died.
It wasn't a big gated mansion on the hill, was it?
No. It was a lovely, nice little house. No big mansion. But he dedicated his life. He dedicated his brain, all of his brain power, to building up Singapore, to lifting up the people. And because of that, the people elected him again and again and again and again and again. And his party, the PAP, has never lost an election, even though in recent years they have been losing votes, and other fringe parties have been gradually getting some seats. But because of his legacy, even today after he has passed away, the value of his contribution to the lives of Singaporeans, making them having a 93% home ownership rate, making them the lowest murder rate in the world compared to any other country, making them the safest, the cleanest, the most orderly, one of the most orderly country in the world, low taxes, low cost of doing business, high income, high employment, housing, high quality, a beautiful, well-maintained Singapore. Now, you know already that's my mentor. I don't care what nobody say. They tell me I must go look in Africa for somebody. I'm not being racist about this. I'm talking about a country which got independence the same time as us. We got 62, they got independence from the same England in 1965. We had 100 times more than them in assets, in value here in 65 than what they had. They had a dirty piece of rock, and they were able, because of good leadership and good governance, they were able to build a first-class country in one generation. And we have now had so many generations, and we still cannot make Jamaica a first-class country. 70% of our human capital is wasting away in this country because of our bad education system. Thousands of potential jobs, 44,000 entrepreneurship opportunities wiped away because of bad governance. Many of our children still leaving college, university, can't find a job commensurate with their qualifications and in their fields because these two parties wiped out those opportunities. So don't tell me to join with the PNP and GLP. And don't tell me that I should not compare us with Singapore. I will continue to compare because they have put us to shame. They're 1/15 our size in terms of land mass, and they are more than twice our population in terms of people, and they have 100 times less resources than us, and yet still, their GDP per capita is more than 6 times ours. They have no debt. They might call me a liar when you go and check. They have debt, but their asset exceeds their debt, which means they have a net worth. We are net worthless. So I say this to say that I want you to understand where I'm going here now. Andrew is taking guidance for a one-party state from China, it seems. And they're working steadily. I know I'm calling them out now. They're working steadily to take Jamaica in that direction. And there's no opposition from America because America has lost its way. America has lost the fundamental vision of freedom. America has lost the moral authority to be the leader of the free world. And America has embraced the very tactics and ideals of China. And because of that, Jamaica is caught between a rock and a hard place because there's no balancing power. If we follow America, we're going to dictatorship. If we follow China, we're going to dictatorship. So we have a leader who has the support from East and West to take Jamaica into a dangerous dictatorial system of governance.
Now,
yeah, go ahead.
I'll finish that point first. This is not as important as that.
They are his leading colonial masters. And America is no longer big on freedom anymore. Nor is Bill Gates or the Economic Forum about freedom. They are about control. They're about taking away your right to your life, your liberty, and even to owning property. Yeah?
We don't own property.
I know, we don't. And so they're taking away the idea of even owning property. And the UIC is the only buffeting figure right now in Jamaica and conceivably in a large part of the world. We are the most progressive political movement in the world.
Actively encouraging ownership.
Yeah, to be advocating that your personal sovereignty must be protected at all costs. No government, no group, no special interest group should have the authority or the power to mess with your individual sovereignty. And so we want to create a truly free and fair Jamaica where your right to your life, your right to your liberty, your right to your property is fully protected by law, and any government that seeks to violate that would be charged for treason and summarily, immediately removed from office by law or by other means if necessary. And we must inculcate that in our people, that we don't ramp with freedom. The price paid to give us the price paid to give us the limited freedom we have now was significant. We can't go back now, friends. The price that Nani paid, the price that Sam Shaw paid, the price that Bogle paid, the price that Gordon paid, the price that Marcus paid, we can't go back. We must go forward. We cannot go back. The price that Taki paid, the price that our Rasta brothers paid, the price that Howell paid. We've paid some serious price for this, and we're taking it for granted. We're playing around with this thing called freedom, allowing politicians to mess with our minds. So hear me now. We were rightly afraid of becoming communist under the PNP back in the 70s. We're rightly afraid. We should have been afraid. You must never take lightly any idea of any form of dictatorship, whatever it's called, whether communist dictatorship or any other kind. We were rightly concerned, rightly afraid. But we must be equally afraid of becoming any form of dictatorship under this JLP, which told us that the PNP was taking us to communists, and now they are exhibiting all of the tendencies that they accused the PNP of. And we must be just as afraid of them as we were rightly afraid of the PNP. And we must be fully afraid of the fact that both of them are controlled by a power with money, ready to buy our elections and then steal our freedom and trap us into poverty, wage slavery, low wage jobs, and lack of opportunity. We must secure and defend our freedom now, or we're going to lose it forever. Argument done.
No, well, the argument isn't done enough, Mr. President, because now the people need to take your word to heart and stand up.
Yes.
Take action to protect that freedom that we so dearly love. Protect our rights that we should have and should so cherish. And I see people in the group talking about it, asking what they can do and encouraging others. So I thank all the persons who are doing it already and encourage all the others who haven't been doing it as yet to start. Start at home. Speak to your partner about it. Speak to your family, extended families about it. Bring them on to the lives. Start a watch group. You say, the lives are on at XYZ time. Let's get on that. But most importantly, like, share, and subscribe. And of course, they are getting millions from the PSOJ. I just gave you one instance. Right? There are many others that are undeclared and many others in the public domain. But guess what? If each one of you here on this live gives $1,000, that's a drinking money. We drink that down the road down there. So imagine we will outspend them every day. But it's not about spending money. It's about having the means to take the wind from their sail and put it in ours. So we're all here saying, let the UIC rise. The UIC will rise. We need to be able to reach our prospective candidates. We need to be able to reach our various constituents, and we will do that with your help. So organize your group of 5. Even if you don't want to be a candidate, organize your group and invite us to meet with them and share the word with them. And from that group, there might be someone who represents the community. And at that time, we need you to be there helping that person. It's not a lot to do. It's what we need to do for each other. So I'm encouraging everyone here, not only spread the word, but be actively involved. So when we're coming to your area, be there. We always announce these things ahead of time. Come out, bring friends with you, bring neighbors with you, bring your enemies with you. Bring the whole town.
Well said. One of the challenge I have with the work that we're doing is that I know sometimes people think that we're politicians. I'm not a politician. We're not politicians. Right
now, I'm still in my office at work.
Yeah, we're ordinary people like you. It's just that we have seen that if we sit on the sidelines, if we just let it continue, if we allow life to just go on, we'll wake up one day and find ourselves fully entangled in chains. And the change will not be, physical metal. It's tighter regulations that squeeze the life out of us. Right now, most Jamaicans have to worry. If they have one job now, they have to worry and be careful because they can't afford to lose the one job because of the consequences. They can't just know that there are many other opportunities out there, and if people are not treating it right, they can move on. It's limited, you understand? And the cost of living is tremendous. I mean, you earn in Jamaican dollars, but the cost of our food is really denominated in US dollars, because as soon as the US dollar change, the retailers change the price. And rightly so, they have to do that. if they don't change the price, they can't go back and buy goods next month. So as long as our country is the way it is, where we have a declining dollar, because our government is not making our country more and more productive, it's making our country more and more dependent. And so because we're becoming more and more dependent and less productive meaning we producing things that the rest of the world wants to buy. Yeah, that's how you become productive. When you produce things that the rest of the world wants to buy. What are we producing? We're producing less banana, less
sugar.
to no sugar, less to no coffee. We're depending on bauxite, which is nothing. That's 3% of our GDP, while we're destroying our topsoil and destroying our health and destroying our farmlands at the same time. We're building houses, matches box houses, killing our farmlands, not building houses for sustainability. So everything our government is doing is setting us up to fail. With drought, we have no water. Right now where I live, there's drought all around me where I live. The place is parched. Water shortages, eh? I don't have a problem because I put in place water harvesting, water capture features, just like we could have done for the entire country. So I have water, enough water to completely last the drought. Others here in St. Elizabeth are suffering because they don't have that. Yeah? So we're living in a country where we have a set of government who don't care about us. All they care about is to fool us so they can continue to take money from us and build their mansions and build their businesses and have their offshore accounts and have their investment schemes and put their money where it's safe while you are left vulnerable in the small market that you're in. So we have a serious problem. So here's how you can help. This is how we're going to close off tonight. I want to share with you a little video which should make very clear how you can help to make a difference right now. You can see that video.
That Jamaica. Did you know that Jamaica is not a poor country?
Mr. President.
It's merely a poorly run country. You see, the colonial system of governance that we inherited from our British colonizers was created to keep the rich wealthy and to make the poor poorer, while concentrating power in the hands of a few, facilitating corruption and nepotism. Help us change this abusive, corrupt system of governance by electing UIC candidates who are committed to ending the mass corruption, poverty, and crime that have been plaguing our nation for 79 years under the two colonial parties. These two parties rely on funding from big corporations that have their own private special interests that benefit them, but not you. Instead, let us fund our own movement to ensure that the United Independence Congress is on the ballot so that you can vote for a system that works for and benefits you, the people, and not just the few. Help us raise money for the upcoming local government elections. If just 5,000 of us donate 5,000 Jamaican dollars each, we would raise 25 million Jamaican dollars to fund our campaign. Your donations will fund representatives that come from your constituencies, your municipal divisions, your communities. Jamaica needs your help. Join us in building a new Jamaica powered by you. Let's save Jamaica now.
I hope the message was very clear as to what we all need to do to make this work. There's no way that a third, fourth, fifth, any number of political parties can succeed in Jamaica without financial support. There's only two sources of financial support: special interest or the people. The two major parties are focused on receiving special interest funding because that is how they were begun, that's how they were founded, that's the premise of their existence. The two colonial parties exist to serve the interest of special interest groups while pretending to serve the interest of the people of Jamaica. The UIC, from its very inception, was designed to work for the people, to be funded by the people, to be owned by the people of Jamaica. And we will not change course. Our commitment is to work for the Jamaican people and to spend every last energy of this movement to build a safe, clean, and orderly Jamaica with a truly free and fair market economy that allows each and every one of us to live, earn, and retire with dignity. The only way to achieve that is if the party, the movement, is owned by you. There's no other way. If we give way to the idea of getting the rich and powerful to own this movement, it will never work for you. Just like how the other two do not work for you. Yes, you can keep voting between them every 4 to 5 years and choose between one or the other, but you'll always end up with the same thing. It doesn't matter whether they tell you it's people time now, time come, black man time, woman time, young people time, log on to progress, prosperity now. It doesn't matter what they tell you, what the slogan is, what the face of the leader is. The outcome will always and every time be the same. Disappointment, disappointment, disappointment. More crime, more violence, devaluation of the dollar, difficulty finding work, and our children losing hope by the minute. The UIC is here for you. It's an ordinary Jamaican movement. It is simple, it is straightforward. It's you owning, for the first time in the nation's history, the political movement, the political party. You owning it, not just you serving it, not just you being a worker, not just you being an add-on, a cheerleader, somebody who just turns up to vote, to come and pick you up, come and sweet you up, give you money, give you food, and say, come and vote for us. No. For the first time, you have a political movement where you are the owner. It is all about you. And if you look at our policies, you'll see that. I'll just tell you one before we go tonight. The two major parties had 79 years to give you back the land that was stolen from your ancestors by the colonial masters. They've had 79 years to make you a property owner. Instead, they played games with you. They gave you an NHT where they took money from 100% of contributors and only gave benefits to 25% of the contributors. They played games with you with land lease, where you didn't own the land, you leased the land, and then they take it back from you and sell it to their friends. They played games with you and gave you matches box houses that you then had to slave and labor to build a decent structure on. And many of you and your parents were never able to finish. The UIC says enough of that. We're going to make every Jamaican a property owner. We're going to make sure that you have a decent home, that you and your family grow up in a decent home with separate bedrooms, proper bathrooms, proper kitchen, proper living room, a decent home. And yes, it might take you a while to pay it off, but you're going to get it upfront and now. And it's going to be below market value because we're designing it for you. And don't let them trick you to say it can't work, because Singapore has done it already. They have successfully made 93% of their people homeowners. We can do the same, and we can do better. All it takes is for us to have a government that is working for us, as opposed to a government that is working for the PSOJ oligarchs and the colonial masters who are behind the scenes. It's time for us to have a government that is of the people, by the people, and for the people. And that's the kind of government I promise you. And my promises are not the kind of promises like what the Prime Minister has made, promising us fixed election dates, promising us job descriptions for MPs, promising us that we're going to have 5% growth in 4 years, and all manner of promises, none of which were fulfilled. Why? Because they're not working for you, and they know that if they fail you within 1 to 2 terms, they're going to be back in office anyway. And while they're in office, they're lining their pockets and building their wealth and protecting their assets, while yours are left vulnerable. Enough is enough. It's time for us to turn the corner and have a new Jamaica, and that can only start when we fire them both. Mr. Wright, you have the last word.
Thank you, Mr. President. They not only protect their assets, they hide their assets. They have knowledge in finance and banking that the ordinary man doesn't have. So they're well ahead of the game, doing it for themselves. You're the only leader I see out there offering financial knowledge, training people in financial literacy with your financial background. I don't see the others doing it. Their monies are hidden in tax shelters somewhere. You know, I see someone questioning whether or not fundraising should be important. And in an ideal world, it shouldn't. But let me share a quick personal story. Last week, I didn't make my appointments in my constituency because I didn't have the means to do so. And guess what? It's a shame because the PNP and all those they have in opposition, they're paid by you to do what they do. And the ruling party, all their people are paid to do it. We're strictly volunteers doing this for the love of family and the love of neighbor and the love of friends. I personally do this for my kids. They don't have a famous last name. And if Jamaica isn't on an even keel, they will suffer. How about your kids? Which famous ancestor they have? Which rich family do they have to call on? And that's why this society has to become one that runs on merit. So I encourage all of you to donate. And if you can't donate, give of your time. And if you don't have the time, give of your skills. And if you don't have the skills, give of your treasury. Whatever you can do is appreciated. Everyone here, I'm simply asking you to invite 5 friends over and have a talk with them. And when they come again, have them bring a friend. And that group of 10 or 15 invite the UIC over. I am available. I'll be there. The president is available. And other members of our executive will be there to speak to them about the UIC and the importance of taking charge of our destiny. This can be done, but it takes you and us, you and the UIC. Let's do this. Let's take Jamaica back. Let's make Jamaica what it should have been 78 years ago. A true republic, a place where true freedom comes to live. Thank you, everyone. Mr. President, back to you.
Well, I told you I'd give you the last words through Winston, but then I wanted to make sure we shared with everyone before we go our press release that I think is very, very important for Jamaicans to know what we send to the media and what they're not seeing when they watch the news. So this is our press release concerning the call, a very special call that we're making. I told you in the beginning, and I forgot to mention it later, that we have some advice for the Prime Minister. And the advice that we have is what is written here in our press release, which I'm going to share with you now. I'll put it on screen and then I'll just quickly read it. Very short. I'll read it for you and we go through from there. So let's have a look at that. This is our press release right here. So it says, the UIC calls for a combined local and general election. It is about 7 years since Andrew Holness declared that within 100 days of taking office, his government would set fixed election dates and have term limits. He had also previously promised to give members of parliament job descriptions. Some 2,548 days later, that promise of a fixed election date and all the other promises have proven to be nothing but to a fool. Any other promises from him should be taken as such and would be in keeping with the 8 decades of unkept promises made to us, our parents and grandparents, by both colonial era parties. The UIC is challenging the government to end this cycle of shameless deception and false justification being used to postpone local government elections for a third time. As the nation's official third registered political party, we are demanding that he follows through on the forgotten promise and fix election dates during this legislative calendar. The electorate is already aware that a vote for the UIC is a mandate for full electoral and governance reforms. The figures show a very straightforward rationale for local government and national elections to be held simultaneously. The UIC proposes a combining of these elections into one for a fixed election date of February 28, 2024. This would save us billions of dollars, which we further propose to be strictly dedicated to a revolving fund for micro entrepreneurs to access low-cost loans, to regularize and grow their businesses in a way that clears our streets and bring public order without government brutality. This will solidly show that this PM and his administration can for once put the people's interest first. So there you have it, Sir Winston. This is our press release calling on the Prime Minister to do two simple things. Fix the election date now for February 28, 2024, and combine it with the local government and general election as one, so that we save billions of dollars. And then the monies that we save, start a revolving fund that's dedicated to the small man on the street, helping them to regularize their business, to formalize their business, to improve their business, and clean up our streets in an orderly, humane, and caring manner, instead of what we're seeing now of the brutal disregard for the impoverished state of our people caused by now 80 years of bad governance. Your thoughts, sir?
It is a very simple and straightforward press release by the UIC, and I'm glad we're able to share it with our viewers at home, here and now, because we know there are forces out there that will try to hide, omit, or block this release from going out. So thank you, Mr. President, for sharing that, and we look forward to it going out for everyone to read and understand what the UIC represents.
And let me say thanks to you, Mr. Wright, as our chairman, and all the other members of our national executive who have lent a hand in getting this press release and all the others done. I must congratulate you in particular because of your verbosity and your help in writing these exceptional press releases. I'm very proud to have you as chairman of our board. I think you're most able, and you have made a significant contribution to the development of our movement. I still recall that when we were going through our most difficult moments, we could rely on you to help us to make it through those difficult times. So I want to thank you personally, Mr. Winston Wright, Chairman. I want to thank our Vice Presidents, Vincenzo Crawford and our goodly lady, yes, or goodly lady. I don't know why I have a brain, we call it a brain seizure a while ago, but Miss Jasmine Powell.
Yeah.
And whenever I'm going to call Miss Powell, I'm remembering Miss Burke. And so the two of them clash in my mind.
Yeah.
And our General Secretary, which you haven't seen for a while, our Friday nights, he used to occupy our Friday night spots, Mr. Chase Neal, with two last names, or two first name, whichever one. And and our venerable treasurer, Naika Williams, the youngest treasurer ever, and she has done a sterling job caring for our finances. And our who am I missing? I'm not going to call the first lady yet. Miss Janet Chukanowski. I don't see her on tonight. I'm surprised she's not here. Miss Janet, who is our, I think
we know Sister Janet. It has to be something tremendous for Sister Janet not to be.
Something must have gone wrong. The bad internet over there in Trelawney. So Sister Janet Chukanowski, who is our longest serving director outside of myself and Mrs. Patterson. She has been with us forever.
From the beginning.
And Dr. Harvey, who is the second longest serving director on the board. And we have a very strong recent director, our director of fundraising and donor engagement, Ms. Christine Simpson-Mensah.
Yes.
Yeah, who is, and we have stalwart, somebody who, reminds me of a particular female politician from long ago, Carlene Ramirez Acosta, who is our
very strong lady.
Very strong lady. She's going to be a powerhouse. I can't wait to see her in government. I'm beginning to see her shaping up as somebody that's going to take charge of our transport ministry. She has worked very well with the taxi associations and helping to understand their issues and making sure that we represent them well. So, Carlene, hats off to you as both Deputy General Secretary and Director of Recruitment. And by the way, I'm calling out these names, because sometimes people think it's me alone.
Before we go into that, don't forget the Deputy Chair.
Yes. Okay. I mean, he's our recent Deputy Chair. He's very new to the team, but Mr. Garth Barnett is a constitutionalist, somebody who is very careful about the Constitution and those matters. And I've deliberately left out until now. There are other persons as well. We have people like Misha Earl, who is on our PR team, and everybody knows Douglas Harper, who is the leader.
Man with the voice.
Yes, the voice, the leader of our PR team, Mr. Harper, big up. And we have people like Camille Locke, we have Dr. Saunders, we have Clive Patterson and Emma Gordon over there in Canada. We have Mr. Keith Romans over there in Texas. Some great people, Cleveland Harris on our finance committee. Some wonderful people. I can't call all the names. John. I should call him Ras John. And his wife Elsa Tremblay from Quebec. Some lovely people, quite a team, and we're trying our best to represent you well. But please know, it's not Joseph Patterson alone. I couldn't do this by myself. It's impossible. It's a massive, 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 massive task. And we're doing it on a shoestring budget. So if you don't like to hear me, some people don't want me to talk about money. But talk about money. Money is important. How are we going to work without money? After going to Kingston recently to go deal with some matters with the transport sector, that's, hours away from work. Just traveling 2.5 hours there, 2.5 hours back, plus the time you spend, and you're away from work. You're not, when you're doing UIC business and you're not doing your regular work business. You understand? So, and he's at work. I mean, the chairman is at work right now. Probably leaving work later tonight. So my friends, it's a real work we're doing here. And I need all of you to, share it, get into it, be a part of it. This is a historic moment. We are about to change the course of history in this country. On Ash Wednesday, I got a lovely visit from a lady and her husband and her mother and another family member, I think. And they came by and we met. They wanted to meet me in person. They're originally from St. Elizabeth, but they were visiting from overseas. And we sat down and talked. And I was so impressed with their willingness and commitment to seeing to the Jamaica. They said, we love the vision, Mr. Patterson. This is what we want for Jamaica. And so they have come back and they sat with me for about an hour, looking at how they can help to fund the campaign. They don't have a lot of money. I mean, they are professional people, but they're willing to give what they can to help. And if all of us do that, if tomorrow morning 5,000 of us get up and say we're going to give the equivalent of 5,000 Jamaican dollars to the movement, that's $25 million for us to help win an election. To put it in context, in the last election in my constituency, here in Northeast St. Elizabeth, the two parties spent $16 million trying to win the seat. That's just one constituency. They spent 16 million trying to win.
Combined, right?
Combined, yeah. And you know why they spend 16 million to win? Because there's value in it for them. The value in it for them is that they're going to enrich themselves in the process. Now, when we spend your money to win these 63 seats and 228 municipal divisions, when we spend your money to win these seats, you know that we have nothing to gain except what you're going to gain. And here's why. When the UIC wins and we change the system of governance, all of the loopholes and avenues for politicians to rip you off would have been closed. So we're going to close down the loopholes, close down the opportunities for people to rip you off. We're going to put good governance. We're going to separate the executive from the legislative and the judiciary. We're going to separate the Senate from the House, put barriers between them, create the right kind of incentives for them to work on your behalf and disincentives for them to not try to engage in corruption because the cost of doing so would outweigh the potential benefits based on the model of governance we're going to put in place. So you know that we have our vested interest is to serve you, because when we're elected, only you going to be there to fund us to be re-elected. We are by nature, we are the enemy of the establishment because we're about to end the gravy train. We're putting an end to a system of milking the Jamaican people. So they don't want us to win. So in the next election, the last time they gave over 300 million for a few weeks. This time around, then we'll probably double it to ensure that they win. But there's one advantage that we have. Our advantage is this. Number one, the Jamaican people are now more aware than they were before. They might not understand all what I'm saying. They might not even hear it yet. But based on the showing of the last 3 elections, the people are fed up. And because they're fed up, all they need to see is an alternative. Now, once you give us the money so that they can see us, so that we can circumvent the radio that's blocking us, and circumvent the TV that's blocking us, and circumvent the shadow banning on social media, because we can buy ads and we can get out there in the communities and hit the ground. We can print pamphlets. We can dedicate time and people in communities working without knowing that when we finish, we're dead for hungry. You understand? So if you give us the means, we will give you the country that you want. A safe country, a clean country, a very orderly country. A country where you and your family can live, you can earn, and you can retire with dignity. You don't have to run away anymore. So all of you who are overseas now, when you think about the UIC, remember these basic things. When we win, every single Jamaican abroad will be able to vote remotely from wherever you are in the world. Absentee ballots, electronic. When you're ready to come home, you'll be able to come home 100% duty-free. Bring back all your assets with you, mental and physical, and you will not have to pay a single cent to come back to your country in terms of bringing in your goods. All your tools, all your equipment, your furniture, your vehicle, you can come back with it. Whatever age it is, your choice that. We're not going to try to make it for you. And whether or not you are a dual citizen, you will be able to hold office in this country and run for office. Why? Because you should not be punished because you were forced to be an economic refugee. You were forced out of this country. Nobody in their right mind would take needless suffering. So many of us left because otherwise we would have suffered too much. Our standard of living would be too low. And so we went away and we have made something of ourselves. Many of you went away and earned a degree, found a job, built a family, became a part of another country. And now we want to tell you that if you want to come here and serve, you need to give up what you have earned over there to come here. No. Many of you have donated tremendous amount of money to send brother, sister, cousin, nephew, niece, friends to school. And the UIC will not punish you. In fact, what the UIC is going to do is bring us back together as one Jamaica. Whether you live here or not, you're a Jamaican and you're a part of it, and you're important to be a part of the solution to build this country. So we're going to reverse the brain drain by embracing Jamaicans from around the world as one big family. That will make us one Jamaica and stronger together. Thank you very much. Have a good night. Until next time, take care. Bye, Sir Winston.
Good night, Mr. President. And thank you for having me on.
My pleasure.
See you
Good
soon.
night, everyone. One
Good night,
Jamaica,
everyone. One Jamaica.
stronger together.